Morning, all my friends, and welcome in. Lazy Retired Granny here. It is 5 o'clock a.m. here in Salem, Oregon. It's supposed to be a warm one today. I think it's at about 90 degrees. I think that's what it said. And that would be about 32 Celsius. So I am continuing my journey on Diamond Art Club's The Golden Valley by Chuck PINSON. And it is a 36.6 inches by 27.6 inches or 93 by 70 centimeters. It has 53 colors, which includes 2 ABs, which stands for Aurora Borealis, which is a type of diamond with a unique rainbow-like effect. They reflect light in a way that creates an iridescent, multicolored sparkle on the canvas and mimics the glow of northern lights. Okay. Did I say the date? I can't remember now. It is Thursday, June 29th, 2023. I know I said the time because it's 5 o'clock in the morning. So, let's see. What do I want to work on here? Where am I at? One moment, please. Okay, I'm going to do this color. Hey, Ellie. Ellie just had her breakfast. Yeah. I swear, I have got one of the smartest dogs on the planet. Now she's bringing me her toys to play pull toy, and she's pulling me in my chair. I have a rollers on my chair, and she rolls me across the room. I'll be right back. She's stronger than me. I guess I started talking and she thought I was talking to her. I got it. Granny 1, Ellie 0. Go get it, girl. Go get it. Bring it here. Okay, what was I talking about? Maybe nothing. Let's see, and what was I going to do here? Okay, I'm doing this. I am drinking my coffee with hazelnut creamer today. Nothing on the agenda today so far. I've enjoyed reading your comments about days gone by in television, and it kind of sparks some memories in my brain of when I was little growing up. We lived in kind of a new, well, not really new, but housing development that they started building in the 50s. And we had our portion, and then the next empty field across was a filbert orchard, and where they had not built houses yet, if that makes sense. They have since torn all that down, and it's most of it, and it's a housing development there too. Of course, you know, this was back in the 50s and 60s. So yeah, they've torn down the fields. I believe the red hill that us kids used to play on is still there. I haven't been there for years. But the last time I was there, that little red hill was still there. And there was a little gravel hill, or little gravel road that went between the houses, and it had the red dirt hill on it. And I'm not explaining it very good, but anyway. And then the filbert orchard was back there, and we would go and pick filberts when those were in season. Oh man, I love filberts. Yum. Anyway, we were up on there was, probably 6 of us kids, and we would go up on the hill of the red dirt. Red dirt does not come out of clothes. It stains them. And yeah. And we wore out more seats of our pants than because we would go down the hill, on our rears, slide down that hill. I don't know why we thought that was so fun, but we did. But anyway, a bunch of us kids were up on the hill one day and, sliding down. And we were all up on that hill when apparently we disturbed a bee's nest. And our moms were all over at one of the neighbors having morning coffee. And then all of us kids were outside playing on the hill. Well, the bees came out and started stinging us. And I mean, we were screaming and crying and running to this one neighbor's house where all the moms were gathered for coffee. And of course, they were all in a panic, didn't know what was going on. And yeah, we all got bee stings that day, and clothes were being ripped off, and making sure that the bees weren't still stinging us. And oh my gosh, yeah. Luckily, nobody was allergic to bees. But yeah, we just, I guess, disturbed a swarm of bees up there, their nest. So it was a while before we ventured back up to the Red Hill. And our one neighbor, they had converted their garage into a playroom. They had 4 kids, and yeah, they were very, very kid oriented, and they converted this garage into a playroom for the kids, and they had a piano out there. Oh, I used to love to go over there, and they would kind of teach us a few things on the piano. And then they also had a boat, and they took us out boating one year. I remember that. I don't really remember being out in the boat. I just remember going because it was their 4 kids, the dad, and my dad and me. And I wasn't very old. I was, probably only 6 or 7. But I remember that kids' dad stopped at the store, and I don't know, him and my dad went inside the store, and us kids waited outside, or in the car, and they came out, and their dad bought each one of them, you know, do you remember the 1-cent bubble gum, or 2 for a penny, or I think it was back then. Anyway, he had gotten each one of his kids bubble gums. My dad didn't get me anything, and they're all sitting there with their bubble gum blowing bubbles and stuff, and I didn't have any. And I was sad. And that's what I remember of that boating trip. And when I was going into the 4th grade, it was Labor Day weekend, and my dad had a little moped, and he said, let's ride up to the store, and I'll ride my moped, and you ride your bicycle. Well, I had to try really hard, you know, to keep up with my dad on his little moped and my bicycle. And to go to the store, we had to go up this incline. Well, you know, of course, it took me longer to go up the incline in the roadway than my dad on his moped. So he thought it would be a brilliant idea to take hold of my basket on my bike, and then I would go faster up the hill. Well, that was a train wreck. I fell off my bicycle, and the handlebars went up into the outside of my jaw. Yeah. And I was pretty skinned up and stuff. Well, the next day was the first day of school, and I went to school, and my jaw hurt really, really bad, and they ended up, now I don't remember going to the doctor. It seems like the doctor came to the house. Really weird. But anyway, I had the mumps, and it was just a fluke that, you know, I'd had that accident the previous day, and then I got the mumps. So I was out of school for a couple weeks. So I missed the first couple weeks of the school year. And in our little cul-de-sac, we had a family. We were the corner house, and the house across the street from us, the people who lived there were kind of, they didn't really associate too much with the neighbors, and they were older than I think the rest of the parents in the neighborhood. And they had a boy who was a few years younger than me, and that was all. And they were building another house for themselves out in the country, and they used to take me and their son out there, give their son somebody to play with. And oh my gosh, I must have stepped on I don't know how many nails out there. But the dad, he was an electrician, and he actually got electrocuted and died on the job. And right after that, the widow, she moved. I don't know what happened to them, where they went, or if they ever finished building that house, or what. But yeah, they up and left. And then the house next to them, the people there had, we called them the 4 girls. They had 4 daughters. And then they moved to California, and then they had that as a rental house. So we had a lot of different people coming and going in that house. But one lady who lived there, she was, I kid you not, the spitting image of Jacqueline Kennedy. And I remember they were Catholic, and I remember them every Sunday. Everybody was all dressed up, and I think they had 3 kids. But they were all dressed up, and she had on her hat, and they'd go off to church. And then the people who lived next to them were the people with the boat and all that. They had 4 kids. And when one of their children was very young, they had a house fire. And the little boy, his legs were amputated because of that fire. He was burned. And so he had this little scooter that he would ride around on. And he had artificial legs, but I felt so sorry for him trying to walk in those artificial legs. And then next to them was, we called it the creek. And the cannery that was, I don't know, probably a mile or so away. During the summer, all the juices from the canning stuff would go down the creek. And so the creek would turn this blood red. And then next door to us was a family, and their dad had died. And so it was mom, and she had 2 girls and a son. And my first husband was the son. So I lived next door to him from when I was about 6 until 13, and then we moved away. And when I was, I don't know, 18 or 19, I ran into him, and we got married. Didn't last, but we only were married 7 years, but so I already knew his family, and his sisters used to babysit me. And then next door to them, by the creek, there was a German lady and her husband, and they had an organ, and we would go down there, and he would play the organ. Just fascinated me. And then they, I believe, built a house way out in this remote area in Salem with tons of acreage, and they had a little creek, and they built a bridge and had all this wildlife, and you could fish in the creek on their property, and it was a beautiful home. It was just the two of them, the nicest people you'd ever want to meet. But when we moved, where we moved to was not, you know, a housing district. It was off of a busy street, and so it was a little bit different environment, from quiet life to noisy. And not that get to know your neighbors type of thing. But my dad and stepmom weren't real social people. What else did we do when I was little? I just remember, we'd go up to the school and play, and I loved to play Foursquare. So you'd always find somebody at the school with a ball and play Foursquare during the summer. And yeah, and then when I was 11, I was old enough to go out in the berry fields and the bean fields, make money to get school supplies and clothes. And so, I was told you need to work, and if you don't make any money, you don't get school supplies and you don't get clothes. So, you need to make as much money as you can. And yeah, so I started earning my money, and then I also babysat to earn some money. And then we moved when I was 14. I was in the 9th grade. And back then at 15, you could work in get your work permit. And my dad knew the owner of the owner of our Kentucky Fried Chicken. And it's real funny because I did not like Kentucky Fried Chicken. My dad loved Kentucky Fried Chicken. Anyway, the guy who owned those, the Kentucky Fried Chicken that I worked at was right in front of the Catholic school. And all of his kids went to that Catholic school. And so his name was Leonard. We called him Lenny. And he was a sweetheart. He really was. But he came across as one like an Italian dad. You know, he could be rough and, you know, but other times he could be just great. But anyway, my dad knew him, and so as soon as I turned 15, I went to work at Kentucky Fried Chicken. And then I worked there along with babysitting. And I worked there 1.5 years. And so, because he hired a lot of the Catholic kids, because they would just, when school was out, they would just, you know, walk from school over to the restaurant right there and go to work. And so he had his adult crew during the day, and as soon as school was out, the adult crew left, and then we would work our shifts. And yeah, so it worked out. And then the adults got the weekend off, and us kids would work the weekend. So it was kind of neat, you know, how it worked out. And what's my time? Oh, I can't read it. But I worked there for 1.5 years until I was 16, and I could work at the cannery because the cannery paid more. And back then, when I started at Kentucky Fried Chicken, I got 50 cents an hour. And then when I became head girl, I was making, $1.25 an hour. And then I went, when the cannery opened up, I quit there and went to work for the cannery. And I worked there till I was 18, and then I, you know, graduated high school, and I took my state exam and got hired on with the state. And I started at the very bottom in the mailroom. I liked working in the mailroom. I hated my boss. And then I got promoted, and I hated that job. And then I quit. And yeah, I should have, I don't know. I just wasn't ready yet to be in the corporate world. I was too immature. It just was a whole different ball game, you know, working with adults, and you know what I mean. I was not mature enough. I had kind of lived kind of a sheltered life, so I didn't know what was going on out there. Well, my time is just about up, so I rattled off enough, I guess. So I'm going to let you go. Let me know how your childhood was. I was a 50s and 60s child, so yeah. Okay. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll talk with you soon.